we're coming up to my third Christmas as an open solosexual. I first started coming out of the closet publicly around the beginning of the pandemic. And I want to point out some ways that we could be more accommodating to solosexuals in the workplace. So we're coming up to Christmas. I work at a tutoring center right now, but this could apply to a lot of other work. And most of my colleagues celebrate the Christmas season. Either it's Christmas or Hanukkah, but most of my colleagues want to spend time with their family, which is great. I don't have a problem with that. I have a colleague who is still close friends with his ex-wife. They have a child together. I have another colleague who's in her 70s, and she and her husband don't have any children, but they have a romantic life together. It sounds like they're going to go on a cruise, which is great. They probably haven't had a chance to do that for many years now. I have another colleague who's in her early 20s, and she is single but not solosexual, so she'll probably go out to mingle with other people, which is also great. And so I'm left behind to fill in for all the holiday hours that everybody is too busy with life to handle, which is good too. I love the students who are motivated to come in on Christmas. There's just one problem though. I'll let you pause the video to think what's wrong with it. I get to work with students who are really motivated to come in during... You got to understand, a student who would come in on Christmas Eve, they're not going to be a troublemaker. Nobody goes to a tutoring center on Christmas Eve to cause trouble, to scream, and to throw a fit, and to disrupt other students. No. They have better things to do on Christmas Eve. The people who come in on Christmas Eve actually want to study. The problem is that the hours are very sparse. So Christmas week, I might get 10 hours of work. I normally get 30. And I get paid for 10 hours, but I have to miss out on a romantic getaway for myself, right? Unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues don't think of myself going out as a romantic getaway, right? It really is, but a lot of my colleagues disagree on that. Now, so I end up having to stay for those hours. Now, one way to accommodate, the obvious way to accommodate this is, why not just pay me for 30 hours? I mean, you need somebody to fill in those hours anyway, right? It's not like the students who come in Christmas Eve are not important. Quite the opposite, actually, right? You would rather miss out on students who come in on a Monday afternoon in October, and who are there because their parents forced them to go there, and they're going to throw a fit and argue with me. And I had a funny story at a different tutoring center that I was working at last year. I had a student, we were giving out reward points, and I had a student who was misbehaving a lot, and I was constantly threatening to take away his reward points that they could use to buy candy and other prizes. And I would take when they lose their reward points, I would rip them up in front of the other students to kind of humiliate them for a moment. And he was really acting up, and I wanted to give him one last warning, so I ripped some other paper to make it look like I was ripping his reward sheet. I wasn't, but it looked like it, just to give him a scare, and to really warn him. And I told him not to put his head through this furniture in the room. Because he has ADHD, so he has to sit in a different corner of the room where he wouldn't get too many distractions. He was putting his head in the furniture, and it looked kind of spooky, and he was distracting the other students too. And he had about 40 reward points. It was enough to get at least one of the large toys that we had in the prize cabinet. And I threatened to take them away unless he stopped acting up. And he made it through the whole class. At the end of the class, he decided to put his head through the furniture anyway. And I ripped his reward points to shreds, and then he screamed at me. And see, part of the reason I love working the holiday season is you don't see a whole lot of that on Christmas Eve, right? And unfortunately, it was Thanksgiving Eve that I was working at the last tutoring center. I had a really nice student who wasn't acting up like that, but my boss asked me to leave early, and that really put a dent in my holiday season. So please don't do that. if you have a colleague who's willing to stay Thanksgiving Eve, let them work those extra hours. In fact, pay them what you normally would pay them for a week's worth of work, even if it's sparse, right? Because be fortunate that somebody wants to show up Thanksgiving Eve. Okay, short of doing that, imagine you can't do that. The next best thing is to recognize that everybody Christmases in a different way, right? Some people Christmas on December 25th, other people Christmas when there's a lunar eclipse out, right? Don't hold a prejudice against that, right? So, for example, I would love to get the lunar eclipse off. I would have loved to get. Well, believe it or not, I'm Facebook friends with a celebrity from halfway around the world. I would have loved to get her birthday off because she had a celebration online, but unfortunately different time zones, and I couldn't stay up for the whole thing, and I had to work the next day. If I had the next day off, I would have celebrated her birthday with her. It looks like she might have. I'm trying to convince her to have a ceremony with herself. She's also solosexual, and I'm trying to convince her to walk down the aisle by herself, and I hope to attend that, right? And so not everybody Christmases on Christmas Day, right? Or December 25th, I should say, right? Anyway, some food for thought on how to accommodate people who have slight differences in their sexuality, in their traditions, in their philosophical beliefs, and their lifestyles. Thanks for watching.